Hello. Oh, straight off. Cracking. So, this is, I think it's going to be hard. I'll say from the start. So this was a message that I felt on my heart like probably about a month and a half, if not 2 months ago. And a lot of things have changed between now and then. I didn't expect it from flipping start. A bunch of you know, obviously, but my girlfriend's dad, he passed away not that long ago. And the meeting, I mean, to some extent, I'm glad she's not here because it's tough. It's tough for me. But there's a reason why it was put on my heart this before. So I'll just go through it. But bear with me if I'm all over the place. Make for a good podcast. Tuesday together. Not the last Tuesday together that I did was a message that I called "Set the Standard." I think we got little thingy as well. There we go. Cool. It was called "Set the Standard," and it was inspired by a quote used by a bodybuilder by the name of Chris Bumstead. Good name. And he's the 3-time Mr. Olympia winner in the classic physique category, and he's won that 3 times on the bounce. That was after he came second before his maiden win. So he was close the first time. Well, yeah, not necessarily the first time he competed, but he was close one time, and then after that, 3 consecutives. Obviously, I've lost a lot of weight, and I've been learning how to do bodybuilding and stuff like that. So just thought I'd check him out. You know, the best in the business is probably quite a good way to go, although none of the dodgy stuff that they take. He dedicates his unwavering determination to come from the disappointment of getting second place to winning 3 on the bounce down to his winning mentality. He set his standard by winning the first time, and he'll continue to do that as long as he can or until a new challenge presents itself. But to do that, he cannot let his standard drop. If he lets his standard drop, someone's going to come and take his place. And I wanted those listening to look at themselves and evaluate what standard they were setting in their lives, mainly to do with their personal development. Are we as individuals, taking the time to develop ourselves, push ourselves to become the best versions of ourselves, to fulfill the potential that God has set for us? And then the most key part of that for me is then staying consistent to that goal. Today's meeting branches off from that, moving on to another one of the quotes Chris Bumstead uses for inspiration, which is "pressure is a privilege." I thought it was quite interesting as a concept. Why would being under pressure be a privilege? Well, he embraces the pressure he and others have placed upon him, like all top athletes do. I can always... One of the questions that's asked across the football world is, if you've got to put your money on someone scoring that penalty for you, most people have got some form of answer for that. For me, it'd be James Milner. Always scores, never misses. But those people under pressure are the people that you rely on. They eat it up. They're all for it. He sees the fact that he is under pressure as a privilege because it means that he's on top. He's having to battle not only his opposition, but also his own mental well-being to avoid being knocked off that pedestal of number 1. It's that pressure that keeps him honest, and he uses it to make himself better than the previous year. And it reminds me, to keep it on football, but it reminds me of Liverpool and Man City last season fighting for the league. I don't think we would have seen the performances that we saw and the points total if the one didn't have the other, because they were continually pushing one another. And from that, we saw some amazing games towards the end of the season and saw something truly impressive in what Man City were able to do, unfortunately. But it made me realise that sometimes pressure can bring the best out of us, not only in us, but in other things in life. So this is just a bit of fun. But I've got some examples of pressure improvement. So an espresso is an intense coffee drink that is created by boiling water being forced at 130 to 150 psi. I knew this without researching it, obviously. Being pushed through finely ground coffee beans. This can then be used to create other coffee beverages, or specifically as an espresso. Now, I've bitten into a coffee bean. I don't know if anyone else has. Anyone else giving it a go? It's rank, isn't it? Disgusting. And some might argue that an espresso is also rank, but I think it's okay. I think it's all right. But that process of applying pressure to that coffee bean, obviously some other processes as well with the roasting and the whatnot, but mainly that's one of the key processes for espresso, made it more enjoyable than its original form. One that should be, fairly safe is olive oil. And other oils follow that same process or similar process. Firstly, the olives are smashed and crushed into paste and spread on fibre discs, if you didn't know, that are stacked on top of each other. They are then placed onto a press where pressure is applied, and this separates the oil from the fibrous remains of the olive. Once that process is done, the oil is filtered and collected, ready to be bottled up and used. Now, the olive itself is lovely. I remember once again, they're a bit divisive. I like an olive, but I'm pretty sure most of us on a nearly daily basis would use olive oil as something that's useful. Now, one that's pretty easy to showcase is water pressure. I think that's something fairly easy. You turn on a tap and water flows out of it. You place your thumb under it and you get soaked. If you decide to replace that finger with a hose head or something like that, then all of a sudden you can direct that pressure to water your garden, force even more pressure through that water, and it can remove dirt and grime onto houses and cars or whoever, cats maybe if it's dad. Force even more pressure over a water wheel, and an extremely heavy stone mill will begin to turn. This is one where I'm sure some of you will say that it's not how dams work, but it's the way that I'm seeing it. Force even more pressure by water by dropping it from a height. Don't know if that's how it works, but that's the way I'm seeing it. And you have electric power. Maybe? Is that about right, Tim? Get in. Happy days. Basically, the idea there is applying more pressure can sometimes be a game changer from something on there. And now, finally, I want to talk about diamonds. Now, before this meeting, I thought you could turn coal into diamonds, but apparently that's not happening, which is really frustrating for my meeting because, it's good symbolism, isn't it? But what it is true is that if you... Oh, I've lost myself, meeting. But what is true is that a huge amount of heat and pressure is required to create them. I don't know how they figured out the sums, but apparently 130,000 atmospheres of pressure. If anyone could tell me what that is, go for it. But basically, diamonds are made from pure carbon, but through an immense amount of pressure, turn into something beautiful. Clearly, what I'm trying to show here is that when pressure is applied, change can happen. I would imagine that most of us don't like feeling under pressure, and I love the fact that my job is fairly pressure-free. That enables me the good old work-life balance. But you could argue and say, I'm not pushing myself to be the best fibre jointer. I could be, but I think I'm pretty good. But more than likely, if we're setting the standard in our lives in whatever goals matter to you, then you'll be feeling some kind of pressure. Now, going back to the examples I've already stated in this message, what happens when pressure is applied, it changes, it develops, and it grows. Are you frustrated with where you are in life? Maybe there's that thing that you're putting off doing because you think it's too hard, or that you aren't smart enough, strong enough, or wise enough. I want to encourage you today to give it a go. Dip the toe, take the first step, and yeah, it might be hard, but eventually through dedication, you will change, develop, and grow. And when you start to feel pressure, try your best to push on, because that will make you smarter, stronger, and wiser in that thing you want to do. I can't dance, but if I spent some time and effort into learning, then you might make a dancer out of me. The quality you might be able to determine yourselves, but, it's on there. We've been blessed by God to live and have free will, and I'm sure he'd be blessed if you have a full life and you live a full life. So if there's things that you're putting on hold, go for it, go through it, give it a go, and I'm sure God will be blessed, even if it's dancing for him, dancing in general, or whatever. I'm sure he'll be pleased that you've actually just given it a go and gone for it. Now, maybe some of you are thinking, have I come to a self-help group or to a church meeting? For me personally, I think the two can be and probably should be one. We should all want to grow individually so that we can develop one another and enable others to learn from our mistakes if they're going down a similar path. If you need help with pressure in your spiritual life, then this part of the message is for you. There are so many examples I could pull from in the Bible of people coming under pressure in their lives and how God uses that to develop them, enabling them to grow as individuals. So I've got a few here. There's actually one at the end that's quite interesting to me. I'm sure there's many other examples that are like this last one, but we'll get to that in a bit. But the most obvious one for me was Job. He was tested on an extreme level in his faith as he underwent a barrage of trials and tribulations in his life. His family was taken from him, his health was taken from him, and his pride. But his faith stayed true. Through that, God blessed Job greatly for that. And it's probably the clearest example I can think of to go with this message. Joseph, the son of Jacob, also went through great hardships in his life. He was plotted against by his older brothers and sold into slavery to Egypt. Eventually, he became a steward to Potiphar, but then was falsely accused of sleeping with his wife and was imprisoned. Due to his ability to interpret dreams, he was eventually rises to a position of governor after interpreting Pharaoh's dreams. There, he was able to help the nation through times of famine and reconnect with his family. But through all that, his faith didn't waver, or at least he stayed true to God, and God kept him safe through all of those times. Esther is another example of pressure being applied and God intervening. When the king dictated ruin for their people, God was at work. He was at work through their dark days as Esther was taken into the harem. Their faithful obedience as Esther risked her life before the king, and their victories as Esther revealed Haman's plot to the Jews' destruction of their enemies. God is there for us even when life doesn't make sense. One that I actually decided to ask Meg what she's got a bit of a background of Christianity. Her mum was very religious, and so I thought I'd see if there was anything that I could pull from her. And she said Mary and Joseph. I thought, great example. They would have been under huge amounts of pressure, not only in their own personal lives, but their lives as a couple, and also outside pressure in society, viewing them wrongly. By having a child outside of marriage, that would have been an extremely scary prospect to go through. And, you know, Joseph could have fled. Mary could have wanted nothing to do with it or been extremely worried with it. And there could have been social pariahs. But they stayed true to what the angels came to say to them. And for that, not only were they blessed by being the earthly parents of Jesus, but they also were blessed to the privilege of seeing him rise as grow up as a human and witness his teaching in his life. I've got one more example to go over, but I also just curious to see, because I think there's so many. Have any of you got particular people that you think that this procedure applies, people that you think that were under pressure that were able to grow and develop from that? I'm going to offer it out in a second before I go through this next one, so have a think. But the last one I want to go through is the disciples. We saw this, obviously. It was another one, actually, that Megan raised up last week. Great bit of a performance at the front. I loved it. But they went through so many difficulties, and they also came from all different kinds of backgrounds. But when they were told to follow, they came and obeyed. Through the course of their time with Jesus, they were able to see many great things. But all of them went through their own hardships and individual journeys with Christ. But all of them were changed and had opportunities to grow and develop. So yeah, has anyone in particular got any person in the Bible that they think went through a strong, intense pressure situation where they're able to develop and grow from it? If not, I'll move on. But
no, he must have been left to school because there was no rain building on off.
Exactly. Daniel. Yeah.
Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego.
Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego. Yeah.
Abraham, when he was asked to marry his son.
Abraham. Hosea. Just from thinking, it was actually one of those ones where I sat down and I wrote this bit much earlier on, and I wanted to come up with examples you could use, and I was kind of overwhelmed with the amount that you could use. There's just so many. If anything, you can even look at the Bible as as the teachings of people's hardships, their developments with God, their relationships there, and just experiencing it like that. I mean, it's pressure, once again. Pressure's applied to all these people in the Bible, and they're able to develop from it. But the one that I thought was interesting, and please call me out if I'm reading it wrong, but it was Jonah. Now, he was tested so much that he fled from the task of proclaiming the word of God in Nineveh by getting on that boat to Tarshish. But in the end, through a mighty storm and a large fish, Jonah trusted in God and delivered the word safely. Now, the reason why is my final example is that even though Jonah went through this whole process and he had his opportunity to develop and grow, he also stuck with his biases against the people of Nineveh. And I can't help but think that potentially there was a missed opportunity to grow there, to understand fully what God was teaching him. And obviously it ends, doesn't it, with him asking God to take his life. I hadn't realised until I actually read it for this, that ended kind of, I don't know, I guess dark. The last part of Jonah is him asking God to take his life from him because he doesn't want to see the people in Nineveh saved. I don't know, it was, for me, fascinating for that. But I think that's an opportunity where he was able to go through this journey with God, but still potentially fell short of the understanding that God was trying to maybe reveal to him. Like I say, if I've misread that, then please call me out on it. I'm more than happy. I'm a big boy, I can take it. All of these stories show how standing firm in your faith in times of great pressure is key to getting through those trials and become part of your general life conditioning. None of these people were perfect, they were all normal, but they stood true to their faith and for the most part were rewarded for it. A commonly used mantra is that if you start to feel pressure in doing something for God, it's more than likely the devil trying to stop you from succeeding. And I'm sure it can be a bit more fine-tuned than that, as I'm sure sometimes it's God telling you that it's not the right thing for you, but the concept is there. Are we stopping doing a good work because it's too hard or becoming too much? That's definitely when the church support network should come through and assist. But potentially it's an opportunity not to give up, but an opportunity to grow and become stronger and wiser. I want to finish today's message by going over pressure release quickly. Obviously, too much pressure over a long period of time is going to cause burnout and potentially lead to a decline in performance and development in what you're looking to do or achieve. That's why it's important to have times of reflection to meditate and evaluate where you are in life. Have your goals changed? Have you hit the roof of what you individually can do in that area? Is it time for a new challenge? That's between you and God, but it's important to remember. I feel like before COVID, our church was firing on all cylinders for a long, long time. And I don't believe as individuals, definitely not myself anyway, and the church took a collective time to reflect, recuperate and evaluate, which I think led to a bit of burnout. Particularly I'm talking before COVID here. And I remember speaking to a few people about that pressure being lifted off over COVID, how it was a relief in a way, that there was times where the stress of everything that we were trying to do, we were going at it so hard that it was great to have that time off and to re-energize. But we're kind of back from our pressure release now. And I think there's things that we can do now as a church, and it's exciting to start seeing the cogs turning again and us being able to get more and more involved in things in and around the church. So I want to encourage you to take that first step and give it a go. You might have had your nice time to re-energize. Maybe you've got a reinvigorated point of view on where you want to, of what you'd like to do for church. And now's a perfect opportunity. We're ready and waiting to go for it. And obviously, when you go for it, you're going to come under times of pressure. But just know that that's an opportunity for you to change, grow, and develop. I want to read to you 1 Corinthians 10 verse 13, because it's basically telling you that it's all going to be okay. Now, it focuses on the word temptation, but I can see it as also, you can throw pressure into there, you can throw that trials and tribulations, but basically, no temptation has overtaken you except what is common to mankind. Our God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, he will also provide a way out so you can endure it. Now, the Bible never shies away from the fact that we're going to go through hardship, but isn't it great to know that it should never become too much? There is a darker message in there that I don't really want to explore in terms of those who have gone beyond that breaking point, but the encouragement is there that it should never need to come to that. Like, if you're ever in a position where you're looking at eventually hitting a breaking point in your life, just know that God's always going to be there to try. He's there to alleviate that pressure. We might just be putting that all on ourselves, and we might just need a pressure release, a time of reflection to evaluate, to meditate. So this is why I want to encourage you all to live and be confident in your decisions, to grow and develop yourselves, so you can grow and develop yourselves around, develop those around you. My own personal growth is dependent on yours, as you are all part of my influence and my circle of influence, and vice versa. I hope that you can understand that when pressure comes, it's a privilege, because it means you're ready to go through a growing phase in your life. That's everything that I've got. So thank you.